what's the level that the Yidden will be on as well. Okay, let's begin. ונחה עליו רוח Havayim, and the spirit of Havaya will rest upon him. Ruach Chachma Bina, Ruach Eitza Gvura, a spirit of Chachma and Bina, a spirit of Eitza and Gvura, Ruach Das, Viras Havaya, a spirit of Das and knowledge of Hashem. So the Eitza means counsel, Gvura means might. The Eitza and Gvura is counsel and might, and Das and the awe of Hashem until it concludes over there by the Haftorah that the earth will be filled with the knowledge of Hashem like the waters cover the sea. And the Haftorah, the Nevuah of Yeshaya, continues. It will be in that day, in other words, in the day of the Geula, when Mashiach will come, etc. That Hashem will again add to acquire the remnant of his nation. After it will originally be that Hashem will dry up the tongue of the Sea of Mitzrayim. Mashiach will raise up his hand over the river. That the different exiles that the Pasuk speaks about over there will pass through that river, like we had, I believe, in the previous Maimer, that there's 7 different countries, and that's why he will split it into 7 different splits in the river for the people coming back from the 7 different countries that the Pasuk enumerates will cross each one their own area in the river. Okay, like many different things are explained in this nevuah, in this prophecy that we say in the Haftorah of the final day of Pesach. That the prophet describes the state and situation that will be in the coming of Mashiach Tzidkenu very soon, actually. And the Zohar Parshas Vayera and the Zohar Parshas Vayera is brought down Shebezimna the Yifkun Yisrael Min Galus, when the Yidden will be going out of Galus, Zminin Kula Dargin Yelav V'chulu. So all the high levels will come together. Like it says, ונחה עליו רוח Hashem, רוח חוכמה ובינה, רוח עצת גבורה, רוח das viras Hashem. Like it says, it will rest upon him the spirit of Hashem, the spirit of chokma and bina, the spirit of counsel and might, and the spirit of das and all of Hashem. Meaning, all these levels will come down upon the Mashiach and upon, as we'll soon see, Klal Yisrael as well. Zohar Parshas Nasi Isim, and the Zohar Parshas Nasi, it's brought down Shazel Mashakosov. This is what it says when there's the famous Nevuah in Yecheskel that he speaks about the dry bones, that there was these dry bones that Yecheskel was told to, or was shown a vision that there would be the spirit of life enter back into them. So it says over there, which is Me'arba Haruchis Boi Haruach, from all 4 sides, or all 4 spirits, will come the spirit that will animate these dead bones, that will give life and revitalize the dead bones, these people. So the Zohar says that what is the idea of from the 4 ruchos? What's the 4 ruchos that will come together? So the Zohar says the koyal dal ruchin, it's referring to the 4 ruchin in our haftorah, in our pasuk. Ruach Hashem, that's 1. Ruach Chachma Bina, that's another. Ruach Eitza Gvura, that's number 3. Ruach Das Viras Havaya, that's number 4. So we have these 4 levels of Ruach will come and animate and give life to the people when Mashiach comes. And he goes on and says, the B'yoyim and the Malchum Mashiach, in the days of the King Mashiach, La Yemrin Chad Lachad Aleph Lichachmasa. One person will not tell another person, teach me wisdom. How come? That no man will have to teach his fellow. Because everyone will know me from their most minor till their most greatest. Therefore, they will not need to teach one another. The harucha de lahain de kalul mikal ruchin yedir kula v'chulu. Since the spirit that we said before, that will be in the bodies of all the Yidden of Mashiach's times, include all these different spirits that we spoke about before, Ruach Das, Ruach Chachma, Ruach Bina, etc., etc. So there's nothing what to teach him. He has all of it already in him. Behind it, this means Imi Yeshak Kosev V'Nacha love Ruach Hashem, Ruach Chachma, Ruach Bina, Ruach Chachma Bina, Ruach Eitza Gevurim Geimer, Koive Pashas Al Mashiach. Though the literal meaning of the pasuk, where it says it shall rest upon him, the spirit of Hashem, the spirit of Chacham Bina, etc. It's referring to Mashiach. And here the Zohar is saying, no person will have to teach another, because we will all have these 4 levels of Ruach. So the Rebbe explains, Mikol Makom still and all, even though the simple meaning is referring to Mashiach, there'll also be the idea that the Ruach of Hashem will rest upon every single Yid, concerning those Yidden that the Spirit of Hashem will rest. It says, from the 4 sides, or the 4 spirits, will come the Spirit and breath and air that will blow into them, and they will live. And Yechezkel Navi said, these bones, these dry bones that I am reanimating, these are the whole house of Yisrael. So we're saying that these 4 Ruachs, the Ruach Chachma, etc., etc., this is in Kol Beis Yisrael, in all the Yidden. It's not just about Mashiach. So therefore it's understood why one person will not have to teach another person, because they will all have the Ruach of Chacham Bina, Ruach Eitza Gvura, etc., etc. And the Rebbe says this is not just something that we see in the Zohar, but we actually see this in every Yom Tov davening. So he says 3 lines in the bottom, this is also understood from the tefillah that we say during opening the Aron Kodesh on Yom Tov, that we say as part of that whole Rebbeinu Shel Olam, fulfill the requests of myself and my family and so on. It's part of that tefillah. It says before Brit Shemay, it says V'skayim banu mikra shekosov. It should be fulfilled in us. What it says in the pasuk, V'nacha Alav Ruach Hashem Ruach Chachma Bina V'Gaimer. It should be fulfilled in us what it says, that the Spirit of Hashem will rest upon him, and the Spirit of Chachma Bina. Who's saying this? In this tefillah, every single Yid is requesting sheyikuyim bo, it should be fulfilled in him. It says v'yiskayim banu, it should be fulfilled in him. ונחה עליו Ruach Hashem, top of the next page, should be fulfilled upon him, that should rest upon the Ruach of Hashem. How can we say that? Isn't that something it says about Mashiach? But rather, this fits in, and this is based off of the Zohar. This is like the explanation of the Zohar. This will be so by every single Yid at the time when the Yidden will go out of Golus. In other places, the Rebbe says this is an amazing thing when you think about this tefillah, that every single Yid asks and davens to have the experience that seemingly speaks only about Mashiach. But this is the concept that the Mashiach experience is also something that every Yid will see as well, and experience as well. So the Rebbe challenges that very idea. How is it possible to say every Yid will have this type of level? How is that possible? So he says in the second line, in the second page, we need to understand. It's brought down the Gemara, if the first ones are children of Malachim on the Bnei Adam, so then we are human beings. In other words, not Bnei Malachim as children's Malachim. Sorry for that interpretation. Bnei Malachim means if the first ones are like angels, they're like Malachim. So then, if the earlier ones like angels, so we're like people. If the first ones are like people, so anu chula, we're like donkeys. The Gemara goes on, says the Rebbe doesn't like to say negative things explicitly. So if we know about how generations are so low especially in our days. In Cain, the Rebbe asked, if so, how's it possible to be fulfilled in us that will rest upon him the Spirit of Hashem if we are such a low generation, we've gone so low? And the Rebbe goes on and says that in the Mamorim of Lag BaOmer of the Mittler Rebbe, we find that this description is like above and beyond, especially according to what's explained in the Siddur of the Mittler Rebbe, they're called the Siddur im Dach, the Siddur of Chassidus, in the Mamorim of Lag BaOmer. So the Mittler Rebbe explains the great quality and advantage when it says that the Spirit of Hashem will rest upon him. He's explaining that this is even a very great height and level, even in comparison to Mashiach. All these things, Ruach Hashem, Ruach Chachma Bina, and so on. How come? How do we know this? ונחה עליו. That's why it says it shall rest upon him. What does that mean? It shall rest upon him. There is he himself, and there's something that comes down upon him beyond him. It'll be added to him an advantage and quality over what he is by himself. So therefore, even for Mashiach, it's such a high level. And what does the Mittler Rebbe explain about what this high level is? That these 4 levels of Ruach, that concerning that it says in the Pasuk in Yechezkel that from the 4 sides of the 4 Ruchos will come the Ruach that will give life to these dry bones. So Bechinas Hoida Atik is the level of Hoid of Atik, which is Primis HaKeser. In the Maimer and the Mittler Rebbe and the Siddur, he continues that afterwards in the Haftarah, after speaking about the spirits, the Ruchos that will rest upon Mashiach, it says he will give him the scent of the Yiras Hashem. That Chazal explains the Moirach V'doim, that he will scent and he will judge. That he will judge by the sense of smell, not just by or not based off of what he hears and sees. And in Kabbalah, this is a very high level, the level of scent, the level of the nose, which we know Chassidus has to do. The idea of scent reaches the most deepest level, just like to be, the Neshama Yiseda receives its rejuvenation after Havdalah by smelling the B'samim, because the B'samim is something that the Neshama appreciates. The same thing, the level of the nostril or the nose in Kabbalah shows in a very deep and high level. The main point is that the Mittler Rebbe says that even what Mashiach is going to experience, it's going to be way and above beyond him. It's a very deep level. So therefore, if it's such a high level that we're talking about, this Ruach Chachma Bina, Ruach Das, all these things, according to this demands even greater explanation. How is it possible that such a great level will exist by every single Yid until we actually daven, let it be fulfilled in us, and let the Spirit rest upon us. This will be understood by prefacing Mashakos of Koil Doidi. The sound of my beloved, behold, he is coming, or it is coming. Medal Galaharim, it is skipping over the mountains. Mekapitz ala gvois, it's jumping over the hills. The Medrash is brought down that there's 2 explanations. Who exactly is this beloved that is skipping over mountains and jumping over hills? Pirush Echad, one explanation is Kol Doidi Hin, that one explanation, the sound of my beloved, behold, he is coming, it's Moshe Rabbeinu. This means that this pasuk is referring to the days of your going out of the land of Mitzrayim. That's why, by the way, there is a picture that the Rebbe had indicated should be on the cover of the Haggadahs that Kahos put out The original Haggadahs, I believe that the Rebbe had them print, maybe even still in the 40s, that he indicated they should have a picture of a deer jumping over a mountain. This was something indicative of that pasuk. It says, what was the skipping and the jumping? They jumped and they skipped over the projected end of Galus Mitzrayim. In other words, they went ahead. That they skipped from the 400 years that Avraham Avinu was foretold by Hashem, by the Bris Ben Absadim, that the Eden would be in a foreign land, and they decreased it and they skipped over that they were only in Mitzrayim for 210 years. In a similar vein, Hashem also skipped over your actions, even though you may not have acted the way they're supposed to be. In Mitzrayim, Hashem skipped over that. Just like all the detailed aspects that the Medrash explains, why the time of going out of Mitzrayim is a time of skipping over mountains and jumping over hills. This is also what it says by Yetzias Mitzrayim, and this is the name of Korban Pesach, that he jumped over the entrance, the doorways. That is one explanation of what the pasuk Kol Doidi is referring to and who it's referring to. Pirush HaBeis, there's another explanation, a second explanation in who Kol Doidi is referring to and what time period it's referring to. So Kol Doidi hin is a buzz, a Melech HaMashiach. The sound of my beloved, behold, he is coming. This is referring to King Mashiach. Umashakosov hin is a buzz, and when it says, behold, this is coming, Hainu Lashon Asid, it's a future tense, and therefore it's referring not to past tense, but future tense, Mashiach. The Bezman Hagula Beis Mashiach Tzidkenu, the time of the redemption, the coming of Mashiach Tzidkenu, Yediluk V'Kfitz Al Kol Anyanim will be the skipping over and jumping over all matters. Will be Yeser Seis Mikmoch Hoiva Seis K'Mert Mitzrayim, an even more powerful way than it was in your days going out of the land of Mitzrayim. Like it says in the pasuk, like your days going out from the land of Mitzrayim, I will show you wonders. It's explained in the Shar HaMunah from the Mittler Rebbe, even the miracles that were in Mitzrayim, incomparable to the great advantage of the future redemption. That's why we say, like your days going out of the land of Mitzrayim, I will show you wonders. That the famous word that we bring it down from the Zohar as well. That in the future will be wonders, even if you when compared to the wonders that in your days going out of the land of Mitzrayim, it will be even greater levels, greater wonders, and be wondrous even in comparison to that. So now the Rebbe brings from Maimer the Friedrich Rebbe, last two lines on the page. The Maimer of Kol Doidi of 1949, Move Mash Kasal Kut the Torah Arizal. It's brought down what it says in the Torah of the Arizal, the Golus Edom v'Yishmael, the exiles of Edom and Yishmael, which are the final exiles. Hein Trein Yarchin, these are the two thighs. Ve'hein Bechinas Netzach V'Hoid, the clip at the top of the third page, Shechavav. These are the levels of Netzach and Hoid of Klippa. As we know, we say this every Erev Shabbos in Paschal Yo, that there's different midas have to do with different parts of the body. The arms are Chesed and Gvura, the body is Tiferes, the thighs or legs, those are Netzach and Hoid. So, Golus Edom, Golus Yishmael, these are Netzach and Hoid, or of Klippa. And therefore, the main avoida in the internal service of a Yid, in what emotional attributes and what character traits they need to serve Hashem with during the time of exile, especially this final exile. You have Chinas Netzach V'Hoid is specifically in the midas of Netzach V'Hoid, as he's going to explain soon what those midas are. And because we need to counter the external Netzach V'Hoid of Edom and Shmuel. So he goes on to explain, we could explain the connection between the avoid of Netzach V'Hoid to the pasuk of Kol Doidi, because Kol Doidi is referring in the second meaning to the final redemption. Our avoida with Netzach V'Hoid internally is going to bring that. So therefore there must be an association between what we are doing now with what's going to occur with the Geula, with Mashiach. In the continuation of the pasuk Kol Doidi, it says he skips over the mountains and he jumps over the hills. It's known skipping is with one leg. That's brought down. We talk about jumping. Jumping is with both feet. And the spiritual idea of that, dealing with the feet, not getting into now 1 foot versus 2 feet, but the idea that we're dealing with the legs, that it's all a result of and having to do with the legs, is because our avoida is a leg avoida. Avoida is the spiritual legs of Netzach V'Hoid. Shem levar megufam. These are outside of the trunk. The actual trunk of the body is one level. The extremities, the outside of the trunk, the legs, the level of the legs. So the Rebbe explains practically this means. The idea behind this is through our avoid in the times of Golos, in the level of the legs, which is the attributes of Netzach V'Hoid. Then there becomes a redemption, a way of skipping and a way of jumping. Like the Zohar says, when the legs meet up with the legs. That means when our legs, which is we are called the heels, the lowest generations, will meet up with the legs of Mashiach. But in the spiritually, it means when we do our avodah, with the spiritual level of the legs, which is Netzach V'Hoid, then we will reach to have the legs of Mashiach planted, as we'll soon explain, then it will be fulfilled what it says. That his legs will then stand at that day on the Mount of Olives. The Koyal Agula Sida goes on the future redemption. The next part of Maimer, he's going to go on to explain the details of Netzach V'Hoid, and why it's specific to this time of Golus, that specifically at the end of Golus, specifically at the last times, the days of Ikus the Mashiach, that's a time of dealing with the legs, because the higher faculties, the intellect and the emotions, which that goes on the intellect, that's the head, and the emotions that goes on the heart, which is the trunk. These are things that were applicable in previous generations more. In our generation, we need to really deal with the down-to-earth more, because the intellect and the emotions, that was more Yitzias Mitzrayim, Meitzer Hagoren, as we will speak about Be'ez Hashem Yisbarach tomorrow.